Next tonight, chilling images of the Idaho College murders are now being made public following the sentencing of convicted killer Bryan Kohberger.
The Idaho State Police, first they post and then take down photos from the Kohberger matter.
3,000 photographs, released, downloaded, and then erased, all in the span of a single afternoon. Now ask yourself this: what kind of images force an entire agency to hit the panic button only hours after making them public? What was hidden inside those files? And why are people still talking about Bryan Kohberger long after everyone thought the news was over? Because what happened in Moscow, Idaho is no longer just a closed case. It's becoming something much bigger, something stranger, something that has triggered a wave of questions nobody seems able to answer. According to reports circulating online, thousands of photographs connected to the infamous King Road House investigation briefly appeared in a public archive before suddenly disappearing without warning. No countdown and no explanation. Just gone. And the moment they vanished, the internet did what the internet always does. It started digging. Forums exploded. Social media went into overdrive. Armchair investigators began connecting dots. And within hours, new theories were spreading faster than anyone could control. Coincidence? Damage control? Or evidence that somebody realized those images revealed far more than they were ever supposed to? Tonight, we're diving into the mystery behind the vanished photographs, the controversy surrounding Bryan Kohberger, and the questions that refuse to stay buried. Because the deeper this news goes, the darker it gets. The first thing people noticed was not what appeared inside the photographs. It was what disappeared. Because when the archive briefly went live, most viewers expected to see ordinary investigative material. Room layouts, evidence markers, documentation logs. The standard collection of images that usually accompany a major criminal investigation. Instead, people began reporting something unusual. Photograph after photograph appeared to show tiny details that had never been discussed publicly. A chair positioned at an odd angle, a lamp that seemed out of place, personal items that raised questions nobody had asked before. And within minutes, screenshots started spreading across the internet. Nobody could agree on what they were looking at, but everyone agreed on one thing. Something about those images felt different. By sunset, online discussion boards were flooded with theories. Some claimed the photographs exposed major inconsistencies in the official timeline. Others insisted there was nothing unusual at all, and that people were simply seeing what they wanted to see. The arguments became so intense that entire discussion threads were locked. Videos appeared. Reaction channels exploded. Comment sections turned into battlefields. And right at the center of the storm was one name: Bryan Kohberger. For years, Bryan Kohberger had remained one of the most controversial figures connected to the King Road House case. Not because people agreed on what happened, but because people could never stop talking about him. Every few months, a new rumor would appear. Every few months, another theory would spread. And every time a news seemed ready to disappear, something pulled it back into public view. Now it was happening again. Only this time, thousands of photographs had entered the conversation. The timing immediately raised eyebrows. Why now? Why release the archive after all this time? Why make it public only to remove it hours later? Those questions became the fuel driving the controversy. Then came another development. An independent online group claimed they had downloaded the entire archive before it vanished. The announcement spread like wildfire. According to the group, they possessed every image that had briefly appeared online. But they also claimed they would not release everything. That statement only made people more suspicious. If the photographs were harmless, why withhold them? And if they were not harmless, why release them in the first place? The speculation reached a fever pitch. Within days, social media users began creating side-by-side comparisons between old investigative records and newly discussed photographs. Every object became a clue. Every shadow became a mystery. Every unanswered question became a potential headline. Some of the theories were wild. Others were surprisingly detailed. One viral post accumulated millions of views after claiming that a specific sequence of photographs suggested investigators had focused on an area of a residence that had never been publicly discussed. Another post argued the exact opposite. According to that theory, the photographs actually reinforced everything already known. The internet was effectively arguing with itself, and nobody seemed capable of stopping it. Then came the screenshots, images allegedly showing comments from anonymous insiders, comments that nobody could verify, comments that spread anyway. One claimed investigators had spent months reviewing evidence that never made it into official summaries. Another suggested there were internal disagreements over what information should be made public. Neither claim could be independently confirmed. Yet, both exploded across social media. Because controversy has a way of growing even when facts remain unclear, the more uncertainty existed, the larger the news became. And then people started looking beyond the photographs. Attention shifted toward the agency responsible for the release. Questions began piling up. Who approved it? Who reviewed the files? Who made the final decision? And perhaps most importantly, who decided to pull everything back down? The silence only amplified the speculation. Every hour without answers generated new theories. Every unanswered question created another wave of content. Some influencers claimed the removal proved mistakes had been made. Others argued the reaction itself was overblown. Meanwhile, viewers watching from the sidelines struggled to separate fact from fiction, because by that point, the news had become bigger than the photographs themselves. It had become a debate about transparency, trust, accountability, and the uncomfortable reality that once information reaches the internet, controlling becomes nearly impossible. But there was another layer to the news, a layer many people overlooked, the human element. Lost in the arguments were the people whose lives had become permanently connected to the King Road House investigation. For them, this wasn't internet drama. It wasn't entertainment. It wasn't a trending topic. It was something much more personal. Yet online discussions rarely slowed down long enough to consider that. Instead, the conversation kept accelerating. New videos appeared every hour. New theories emerged every day. And the controversy showed no signs of fading. Then something happened that changed the tone entirely. A statement surfaced from individuals connected to the case. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't filled with accusations. Instead, it carried a simple message. Remember the people behind the headlines. For a brief moment, the endless speculation paused. Not completely, but enough for some viewers to recognize what had been lost amid the noise. Because behind every theory was a real event. Behind every viral post was a news that affected real lives. And behind every photograph was a moment frozen in time. A moment that could never be undone. Yet even that message failed to stop the controversy. If anything, it intensified it. Because now two competing conversations were taking place simultaneously. One focused on transparency. The other focused on responsibility. One side argued that information should remain accessible. The other argued that not everything that could be shared should be shared. Neither side backed down. Neither side appeared willing to compromise. And caught in the middle of it all was a collection of photographs that had managed to do something almost nobody thought possible. They had reignited a news many believed was already over. But if people expected the debate to calm down after that, they were mistaken. Because the next wave of revelations was already beginning to surface. And according to several reports circulating online, the controversy surrounding those missing photographs was only the beginning by the time the first wave of arguments began slowing down. A second and even stranger mystery had already taken its place. Because people were no longer asking what had been inside the photographs. They were asking who had seen them first. And that question opened an entirely new rabbit hole. According to online chatter, several users claimed they had accessed the archive before most people even knew it existed. That alone would not have been unusual. But what caught attention were the timestamps. Some internet investigators began comparing screenshots, upload records, and archive pages. The result? Confusion. A lot of confusion. Certain users appear to have been discussing specific images before the wider public became aware of them. Coincidence? Lucky timing? Or something else? Nobody knew, but that uncertainty created the perfect environment for speculation. Soon, anonymous accounts started appearing across social media. They all claimed to know something. One account claimed the archive had been scheduled for release weeks earlier. Another insisted the upload date had changed at the last minute. A third claimed internal disagreements had delayed the release multiple times. None of the claims could be verified, yet thousands of people treated them like breaking news. And that is when the news began taking on a life of its own. Because the internet rarely rewards caution. It rewards excitement. It rewards mystery. It rewards controversy. The more dramatic the theory, the faster it spread. Within days, creators across multiple platforms were producing hour-long breakdowns. Some were analyzing shadows. Others were analyzing timestamps. Some were even analyzing reflections inside photographs, searching for clues hidden in the background. At that point, the discussion had evolved far beyond the original archive. The archive had become a symbol of unanswered questions, a symbol of information people believed they almost had access to. And whenever people feel information has been taken away from them, curiosity usually doubles. Then came the alleged leak. Not photographs, not documents, just a short message. A message supposedly written by someone familiar with the release process. The message was only a few sentences long, yet it exploded across the internet. Why? Because of one particular line. The public only saw a fraction of the news. That sentence spread everywhere. Reaction channels quoted it. Discussion groups debated it. Comment sections practically declared war over it. Some viewers treated it as confirmation that major details were being hidden. Others dismissed it as obvious clickbait. But the damage was already done. People were talking, and every conversation generated another. The controversy was feeding itself. Meanwhile, attention started shifting toward the King Road house itself. Old photographs resurfaced. Drone footage resurfaced. Maps resurfaced. Anything connected to the location suddenly became relevant again. People who had never followed the news before were suddenly diving into years of archived content. The result was predictable. New theories emerged almost daily. One theory suggested investigators had overlooked something obvious. Another claimed they had known more than they ever revealed. A third argued the entire controversy was being exaggerated by content creators looking for views. Ironically, that theory generated millions of views itself. The cycle continued. Question, reaction, counter-reaction, repeat, and then another unexpected twist arrived. A group of independent researchers announced they had spent weeks reviewing publicly available material connected to the case. Their conclusion shocked some observers. According to them, the real news was not hidden inside the photographs. The real news was hidden inside the public reaction. Think about that. Thousands of people had become obsessed with what they believed might be hidden, not because they had seen proof, but because uncertainty itself had become the attraction. The researchers argued that mystery was driving the conversation more than evidence. And honestly, they may have had a point, because every attempt to calm the controversy seemed to make it worse. Every clarification generated new questions. Every answer produced 3 more theories. The internet had effectively transformed uncertainty into entertainment. Yet even as debates raged online, another issue was beginning to emerge. Trust. Who should people trust? The officials? The commentators? The anonymous accounts? The self-described insiders? Everyone seemed to have a different answer. And that confusion created the perfect conditions for rumors to thrive. One viral post claimed secret reports existed. Another claimed additional files would soon surface. A third claimed multiple individuals were preparing to reveal new information. Again, none of it could be independently verified. But verification had become almost irrelevant. The conversation had reached escape velocity. At that point, facts and speculation were traveling together, sometimes so closely that viewers struggled to tell the difference. And that was precisely why the controversy refused to die. Because every person watching the news believed they were missing one final piece of the puzzle, one final clue, one final revelation, something that would suddenly make everything make sense. But the deeper people looked, the stranger the situation appeared. Instead of finding answers, they found more questions. Instead of reaching conclusions, they discovered new mysteries. And then came the rumor that changed everything. A rumor suggesting that another review of the archive was already underway, not by internet users, not by commentators, but by individuals determined to decide what could eventually be released and what would remain unseen. Whether that rumor was true or false hardly mattered, because the moment it appeared online, anticipation exploded once again. People began counting days, watching for updates, monitoring every statement, searching every corner of the internet for signs of what might happen next. And if there was one thing everyone agreed on, it was this. The controversy surrounding those vanished photographs was far from over. In fact, it seemed to be entering its most unpredictable chapter yet. And just when it seemed like the controversy had reached its limit, everything became even more complicated. Because the longer people waited for answers, the more valuable those answers appeared to become. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into endless speculation. And yet the questions refused to disappear. What exactly would happen next? Would the archive ever return? Would more material be released? Or would the entire situation slowly fade into internet history, leaving behind nothing but theories and arguments? Nobody seemed to know. But one thing was becoming impossible to ignore. The news was no longer about photographs. It was about trust. Trust in institutions. Trust in information. Trust in the people claiming to know what really happened behind the scenes. And trust is a fragile thing. Once doubts appear, they rarely disappear completely. That reality became obvious as new discussions continued spreading across social media. Every update triggered another debate. Every statement generated another reaction. Every rumor inspired another wave of content. The cycle never stopped. And perhaps that was the most surprising development of all, because controversies usually fade. This one didn't. Instead, it evolved. What began as a discussion about a temporary archive had transformed into something much larger. A cultural obsession, a digital mystery, a case study in how modern information spreads, mutates, and takes on a life of its own. Some observers argue the entire situation proved that people have become addicted to uncertainty. Others claim the public was simply demanding transparency. Both sides believed they were right. Neither side showed any signs of backing down. Meanwhile, content creators continued producing theories at an astonishing pace. Some theories were logical, some were creative, and some were so unbelievable that they sounded like movie plots. Yet viewers kept watching, because human curiosity is powerful, especially when people believe there is still something left to discover. Then came perhaps the most fascinating question of all. What if the biggest revelation was not hidden inside the archive? What if the biggest revelation was a reaction to it? Think about that for a moment. Thousands of people became invested in a mystery they could not fully see. Millions of conversations were driven by information that remained incomplete. Entire communities formed around trying to answer questions nobody could definitively answer. That alone says something remarkable about the world we live in. And maybe that is why this controversy continues attracting attention. Not because everyone agrees, but because nobody agrees. Every person sees a different news. Every person reaches a different conclusion. Every person believes a different explanation, and that disagreement keeps the discussion alive. As of now, the future remains uncertain. Some believe additional material could eventually resurface. Others believe the chapter is already closed. Still others are convinced another surprise is waiting around the corner. Only time will tell which prediction proves correct. But if history has taught us anything, it is that stories like this rarely end the way people expect. They twist, they evolve, they return when everyone thinks they're gone. And sometimes the final chapter becomes even bigger than the first. So here we are, months after the controversy began, thousands of debates later, millions of views later, and the same questions remain standing exactly where they started. What was really contained inside those vanished files? Why did the release spark such an extraordinary reaction? And why does this news continue capturing attention long after so many others have faded away? Maybe the answers are still coming. Maybe they are not. But one thing is certain. The mystery surrounding the King Roadhouse archive has become far bigger than anyone ever imagined. And judging by the conversations still happening today, this news is not finished yet. So here we are, thousands of photographs, countless questions, endless theories, and a controversy that refuses to disappear. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this entire news is not what people know. It's what people think they know. Because every time this mystery seems ready to fade away, another discussion begins, another theory appears, another debate erupts, and suddenly everyone is back asking the same question. What are we still missing? Was the archive simply a routine release that spiraled into a public controversy? Or did its sudden disappearance create more questions than the photographs themselves ever could? Why are people still talking about Bryan Kohberger? Why does the King Road house continue generating attention long after many expected the news to be over? And perhaps the biggest question of all, if those files had never been removed, would anyone still be discussing them today? That is what makes this case so unusual. The mystery is no longer limited to the archive. The mystery has become the reaction. And reactions have a way of revealing just as much as the events that caused them. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think really happened? Do you believe the controversy has been exaggerated? Or do you think there is more to this news than people realize? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Read what others are saying. Join the discussion. Because this is one of those stories where every opinion seems to raise another question. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the internet's most talked about mysteries, make sure you subscribe right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next update. And share this video with someone who loves mysteries, investigations, and controversial stories that keep people talking for months. Because if the past has taught us anything, it's that the biggest twists usually arrive when everyone thinks the news is over. And something tells us this news may have a few surprises left.